I would love to see Canada be the 51st state.
You get rid of that artificially drawn line.
U.S. President Trump's repeated interest in absorbing Canada is a non-starter for Canadians. But could Trump have something else in mind? The Arctic, the frozen expanse that long separated us from adversaries.
Canada's greatest defense is about to become your softest underbelly. The north of Canada, that open border.
Steve Bannon, a one-time confidant of Donald Trump, says he understands the president's thinking. North America's security is threatened as climate change opens up the Arctic, and Bannon says Canada is in no position to defend itself.
China and Russia, the great powers, and the United States, fighting it out over the Arctic. With the vast resources of the Arctic is going to be the new great game of the 21st century. Canada, you are thrust into the middle of that.
President Trump is clearly focused on the Arctic. He says acquiring Greenland is an absolute necessity for international security. And Canada's presence in the north is small. There are many large Canadian Arctic islands. Only half a dozen are populated. Most are uninhabited. But the threat from Russia and China may be less about land and more about the water, access to the Northwest Passage and economic development in the Arctic Ocean, and about the airspace above, the nuclear threat over the North Pole. Russia and China conducted joint air patrols in the Arctic last summer, and the West has fallen behind Russia's presence in the Arctic, which has reopened old military bases and developed new hypersonic missiles.
That's what makes the Arctic such a dangerous area, that we have to ensure that we are, as much as possible, aligned with the Americans, despite the Americans, and we're doing everything necessary, which we haven't been, in ensuring that nuclear deterrence is, in fact, maintained.
Former Prime Minister Stephen Harper regularly traveled to the Arctic to demonstrate Canadian sovereignty, and Canada has stepped up work with NATO to increase Arctic security. But Canada's footprint in the north is spread thin. A military base at Alert on Ellesmere Island, some Arctic patrols, and our military partnership with the Americans in NORAD. Trump is angry that Canada is underspending on its NATO commitments and is bound to exert more pressure.
Internal logic is going to drive you that somehow we have to figure out how to partner with the United States.
Canadians bristle at the thought of Donald Trump running roughshod over Canadian sovereignty, but the North is a strategic target, and Canada is not an Arctic power on its own. Eric Sorensen, Global News, Toronto.